Hello and welcome back to the Will I Vike It podcast. Today, my guest is Paul Macdonald. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Cheers for having us.
You're very welcome. Now, I did briefly mention to you before, I know you more as a big cat guy because you've
Yeah.
been on my other podcast, Weird Wessex, which was how I was kind of originally introduced to you.
hmm
But obviously, we're not going to talk about that for this podcast. If anyone wants to
Yep.
kind of know more about that, they can go and check that one out. But I guess probably best place for you to start maybe would be to explain what it is you do in the context of history and reenactment.
Yeah, sure. I find my life now very much engaged with history every day.
Yeah,
I've always seen it as a big game of join the dots. So my background is originally being from the West Highlands,
yeah,
and I arrived in Edinburgh 1992 for university originally, studying something completely unrelated to what I do now. Uh, I found something much more interesting along the way. And so my first pull really to anything historical was fencing. Something I'd always wanted to do in the Highlands, but there was no outlet at all. I
yeah,
think I'd come to realise the nearest fencing clubs were Inverness or Glasgow, and I was somewhere in the middle. So
right.
there wasn't a chance of just getting my hands on a bit of steel at that time. And it wasn't until I came to Edinburgh, I got a chance, and pretty much as soon as I landed and got myself sorted, I'm like, right, where's it happening? And at Napier University at the time, there was no fencing club as such, but they did. A couple of the staff at the sports union taught very basic fencing lessons, but that was enough to give us a wee taste to then
Yeah,
really want to find it. And I very quickly found other clubs around Edinburgh, and it was sport fencing was all there was at the time, so that was my start in that. But at the same time, I found like a magnetic attraction to blades and
mm,
the making of blades. I think I've always been fairly creative in making things,
yeah,
used to do airfix kits and that kind of thing growing up. But yeah, the idea of making a blade, making something that purposeful and functional was almost irresistible, really. And I found two Dirk and Ski and Do makers, the traditional Scottish knife makers, on Edinburgh's Royal Mile at that time, and got to know them both very well quickly. And they both took me in to teach me carving and various tricks of the trade. And one of those offered me full time work the day I finished uni, basically. So
right.
that got me on and these were the two complementary paths, the crafting path and the martial path, which are very, very complementary. They
Yeah.
both inform each other. And yeah, that's where it's gone since. And I now run my own armory. Macdonald Armoury has been on the go since 1998, and my own Academy of Arms. It's just weekly classes, but I teach workshops nationally, internationally as well, and do a bit of traditional storytelling as well.
I didn't know that bit. There you go. So, so was it through kind of the craft of making swords? Is that what drew you into the history side of it as well?
I think I was equally fascinated on both sides, on the martial side and the crafting side,
Yeah.
and just you dive down these rabbit holes to try and find what's at the bottom. What's the origin story? Where's it all come from? What was that culture all about? Um, and I don't think you ever stop falling down that rabbit hole because it does get deeper.
Yeah.
So yeah. I always say every day is a school day. I'm sure you know yourself.
Yeah.
Anything to do with history, every day is a school day. You're always learning. Yeah,
Yeah, that's it. And even like, there's new finds and things, new discoveries that change
absolutely.
the way we look at things. I was actually listening to another podcast the other day about the Picts and how
Yeah,
much has recently been discovered about those and how that's kind of completely
yeah,
blown a lot of stuff out of the water.
yeah. The Picts for me, the Picts has become quite a really engaging rabbit hole to dive down,
Yeah.
because they're so little known, you
Yeah.
know, and because there's more mystery about it. That's even more appealing, I think. You
Yes,
want to know
absolutely.
more because they're so little, um, and that's led me on quite a path of studying the Pictish monoliths. The stone carvings, um, to study in detail the weapons, specifically the weapons, what's going on, what exactly were they using, were they typical of the period, were they atypical? And what I'm finding is there are really unique things coming out of the carvings that you just don't find anywhere else in Europe. And that's exciting, you know. We're finding something unique martially going on. Um, and then the challenge is to extrapolate that and
Yeah.
rebuild it and literally remake these weapons. And you even discover things in as soon as it's built in starting to back engineer martial
Mm.
technique and method with it. And you discover things about them that you can't get from just, you know, looking at the carving. Um, and yeah, that's fascinating. You know, it's a very hands-on learning process that way. Yeah, it's great.
I mean, it wasn't in my initial questions, but I'm kind of interested in how you actually go from a stone carving, a depiction of something, to actually turning it into a real life thing, because they're quite different, right? I mean, obviously they're almost stylized in the carving.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the question is more how much interpretation do you have to put into something like that?
Yeah, well, you see, you certainly find um, consistencies across the carvings, and that's when you know they're depicting something, you know, that's right, because across several different monoliths, you're probably not looking at the same artist, you know, the same carver. Certainly,
Yeah.
if the origin of those stones are kind of across the east coast some distance. Um, so if different artists in different areas are representing the same shapes, then and to the same proportions, then you've got a good idea that that's right. You know, they're not making things up. Um, so it gives you a bit more faith as to what you're reproducing. You then have to consider the size of the. It's largely been based on the shields, the size of the shield, how it's designed, how it's supposed to be used, what what's your best material choice for that, and weight considerations. And you
Mm.
take all that into account and figure out the simplest, most efficient way that would have been made with materials available at the time. And that's your starting point.
Yeah.
And you do learn little things along the way, but you've got to have a your basic plan, you know, to go off. And it's proved quite fascinating. I'm planning to make another small buckler shield in the next couple of days from another carving. But yeah, it's fascinating, and it becomes more interesting when you get that in hand and you literally start to back engineer martial techniques that work,
Yeah.
and that becomes exciting then.
Yeah, because that's it, isn't it? It's one thing to recreate it, but you have to make sure that this thing is
Yeah,
going to do
yeah,
what you need it to do in the right situation.
yeah. Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, well, you've kind of touched on this already, but I was going to ask you about what kind of things you make at Macdonald Armories, and obviously you've talked about bucklers, shields, and swords. Is that kind of your main area? Are there other things you do as well?
I do have one main sort of area or line that I do, and that's based in World War II. And that's the Fairbairn Sykes fighting knives or the traditional commando knives.
Yeah.
So I got involved with that because myself and my mate started a commando living history group, a World War II living history group in 2008.
Yeah.
And we were lucky enough to get the Heritage Lottery funding at the time, which was great. They gave us 10 grand to buy uniforms and guns. It was magic.
Wow,
So we went
that's nice.
shopping. So, you know, at least we could look the part for giving public
Yeah.
presentations and so on. And we had, you
Yeah.
know, half decent kit to do that. So, but could I find a good quality reproduction World War II FS knife? I just couldn't find one in the market, you know. And
Mm.
I thought, well, I do make knives, you know. I suppose I could make them. And that set me on that path, which was a really dedicated one because that knife has its own backstory and multiple variants of that design. And I went quite deep down that one to eventually bring about quality reproductions of all the variants that were produced throughout the Second War, and then coming off that to make covert blades that
Yeah.
were carried by the original secret agents, were SOE in the UK and OSS in the US. So things like sleeve daggers, shoe knives, lapel
Wow.
knives and things, all the proper James Bond kit, uh, and finding originals to work from to accurately reproduce them was the
Yeah.
challenge there. But that's become a yeah. The FS knives have certainly got me a name in military circles that way. They've become quite popular, so I do make quite a few of those. But cutting in out of the more historic stuff. I mean, going back to Bronze Age essentially, but I'm working largely now from sort of Iron Age onwards
Yeah.
with various swords and dagger projects.
There's quite a range of different periods that you cover there, isn't it?
Yeah,
I
there
mean,
is.
do you have a particular favorite? Is that like picking your favorite child?
That is like being asked to pick a favorite child. It's a very difficult thing actually because
Yeah.
you see, I love seeing the span of history,
Yeah.
because every single weapon through history is, you could say every single weapon's transitional in a way, it's come from a previous form and it develops onto a form after itself.
Yeah.
Um, Even medieval broadswords or, typical cross-hilt swords, they were only around in Europe for, a certain amount of time. They went on to become basket-hilted swords and so on, and moved on over time. Even the basket hilt sword, it was in manufactured, being used from very early 16th century, we could say, through to, well, it's still carried by Highland regiments today,
Yeah.
but in a different form from its origin. Um, and I love seeing, uh, I love this whole idea that in history, it's a big game of join the dots. When you always
Yeah.
learn and you ask more questions, you find that you fill in more dots, along the way, and that just builds your bigger picture that makes more sense, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love, so it's difficult for me. It really is difficult to choose a favorite. That's
I
a
thought you might
terrible
have gone
question. That's
like
a
the
hard
pick.
question.
I thought you might have gone down like the Picts or something, just because it's a very
Well,
Scottish
yeah.
thing. It's very unique.
Pictish arms are absolutely
Mm.
fascinating in
Yeah.
that lost history way.
Yeah.
But you can see on the wall behind me, there's quite a few basket-hilted broadswords.
Yeah.
Um, and I have to say, there's definitely a strong affinity with that because that's the core weapon of the Macdonald Academy of Arms that I teach at. I've established my own complete method of fencing with this weapon. So it's a very personal one for us in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I meant to ask you earlier as well, like whether did you ever have like an interest in history growing up? Like, was it something that your family would take you to historical sites or anything like that? Or
Not really. I don't think in the family really there was a strong sense of that. Um, and of course, I'm of a generation where we didn't get taught Scottish history in Scottish schools. That didn't
fair?
change
Yeah.
until I think the 1990s. Really, it was quite
As late
recent.
as that, was it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
We've got empire history, of course, because that's important for every school child to learn. But, that was the extent of it. We weren't taught
Wow.
our own history in Scotland at that time, and I didn't really start learning it until after school, at least.
Yeah.
But I was aware, growing up in the Highlands in this wee village, you'd stumble across ruined crofts, and you'd poke about, and you'd pull up like old flat irons and old bone combs and things. You're pulling,
Yeah.
little relics from whoever's lived there 100, 200 years ago, and that,
Yeah.
to me, that was fascinating. Very, very amateur archaeology, kids pulling things out of ruins. Um, but yeah, that I remember definitely these things catching my attention.
Yeah.
And I asked my parents one year for a metal detector for Christmas, and I got it. And it was
Nice.
off, and it was over the hills.
Yeah.
I didn't have permissions at all, and I didn't even know that
No.
was a thing. I was just off
No.
detecting,
Did you ever find anything of significance, I suppose? Or yeah.
Not of significance at that time.
Yeah.
I
No.
was just, just taking sort of random areas and just going there and detecting.
Yeah.
But anything that I pulled up, I remember was fascinating because it was local history, even if it was a small,
Yeah.
insignificant thing. Um, and that never left me. Well, I stopped detecting after I went to uni, and I didn't pick it up again until 2015, when I decided to get a half decent detector and then start properly exploring with permissions this time, and and embarked on a week-long adventure with a few friends, like-minded friends. David McGovern, who's like, I think the best stone carver in Scotland for Pictish and Celtic stone carving. He's epic and a
Yeah.
great laugh when it comes to camping and expeditions. And Colin McDougall, who's a good friend, who what he doesn't know about Robert the Bruce and extended family histories and the McDougall side isn't worth knowing. He's a legendary historian. And Graham Biggerstaff, who is a full-time targe maker, the Highland shields. That's all
Yeah.
he does, but I think the best in Scotland.
Yeah.
And yeah, we went on this mad adventure for a whole week with two main areas to metal detect because there were specific things we're looking for. And it was just a whiskey fueled weekend full of stories and lore.
Wow.
Everywhere we went, it was just great. We're camping in the wilds and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and
You
on
could
that,
market that.
yeah,
You could market that. People
yeah,
would pay to do that.
yeah. Well, on that week, I remember saying, guys, there's so many stories we've talked about lost arms here and there and buried things that we know about. Let's go look for them. Let's start a wee
Yeah.
group, a wee battlefield archaeology group just dedicated to finding lost histories like this. And everyone, no one was in doubt. They were like, yeah, of course, we're all on board. Let's do it. So we started this wee group by the name of Conflicts of Interest, uh, dedicated to finding interesting things in interesting places, and we have made some interesting finds since. So yeah, that's been that's still good fun.
Yeah. So jumping about a bit because I'm looking through my questions and thinking about the stuff that we haven't covered already. Um, so yeah, I guess back to the kind of stuff that you make yourself. I mean, do you have a particular piece you've made that's your favorite that you've ever done? Like, might not be something you've done lots of, but maybe there's a particular
Mm.
piece that you really enjoyed the researching of, as well as the
Eh,
making of.
I'll just grab it because it's sitting right here.
Yeah, even better.
we we pocket of swords in here, but this was quite one that was made quite recently. I made two of them, and I was wanting to make a Scottish Iron Age sword,
Yeah,
even though we don't have a single complete example in existence. Okay,
right.
we've
Yeah.
got one blade that's identifiably Scottish, which isn't even in Scotland. It's in a private collection in America,
Oh,
and we've got little fittings. We've got like
yeah,
a guard here, we've got a pommel here, and we've got two or three examples of pommels and guards individually, but
yeah.
no complete sword, and two scabbards, two individual scabbards.
Am I
These
right in? Sorry,
was that
I was just going to say, am I right in thinking that's to do with the soil conditions in Scotland? Like nothing survives, or very little.
partly, partly.
Yeah.
But there is a tradition of depositions of weapons in Celtic cultures,
Okay.
depositing weapons in
Yeah.
lochs and places of water. I
Yeah.
think that's a large reason why we've got an absolute void of weapons, of complete Scottish swords from the
Yeah.
end of the Bronze Age right through to the 14th century.
Mm.
There's not a complete Scottish sword for all that time. That's about 1500 years.
That's
That,
incredible.
it is, isn't it? That's a
Yeah.
period of time that's longer than the period of time we have swords for. In It almost doesn't make sense,
No,
but
it doesn't.
it's the case.
Wow.
But I'm sure that is tied in with the tradition of deposition of arms. which is
Yeah.
another focus and quest for our battlefield archaeology group down the line. Anyway, I wanted
Anyway,
to
yeah.
make a Scottish Iron Age sword, and we know that the early swords were not dissimilar to um, European swords, certainly in Celtic cultures that way. So there was some basis in looking at existing examples in Ireland as well.
Yeah.
There are some there. And I made one for sale with antler fittings, but the one I made for myself and kept was this one here with walrus ivory,
Oh, wow.
guard and
Yeah.
pommel, and 5,000-year-old bog oak for the grip.
Very nice.
And it looks obviously a bit bigger up close, but it's quite, you can see in the hand, it's
Yeah.
just the size of the hand. Fits snugly in the hand right here. And it's a relatively short blade, which has a diamond section and it's hollow ground as well. So it's incredibly swift in the hand. So this was really a project of kind of personal passion
Yeah.
in just
Yeah.
wanting to see this come alive again. And I think it's the first time a proper Scottish Iron Age sword's been made in Scotland, probably since the Iron Age. So
That's incredible.
it's quite satisfying. It's just quite satisfying to make that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of a shame though, isn't it? Like that, like you say, like you're not necessarily, maybe now you are, but traditionally not taught Scottish history in school. Um, Almost a national pride that, yeah, you'd kind of expect to see. And yeah, it just surprises me that it's not taught, and then nobody else is kind of going down these routes of trying to recreate the history from the little we do have. Just seems a
Yeah,
shame.
yeah, yeah. I think to do these kind of things, you, yeah, you have to either be raised very strongly in the culture to continue it, um, or at some point in your life just realize there's something missing
Mm.
and something you want to engage in that's not there, and so you just start hunting for it. It's how I found historical fencing,
Yeah.
by realizing it wasn't there at the
Yeah.
time in 1994, and I'm trying to find it, and I'm going around. I spent several months traveling around as many groups as I could, reenactment groups, the SCA, any group I found that was swinging swords. I would call them up, I would visit them, and I would say, this is all I'm interested in doing. Is, can you tell me what you guys do? And they were almost all honest and said, we just do 4 or 5 basic cuts and parries, and that's our system. I'm like, okay, that's not quite what I'm looking for. But they were honest enough in what they were doing. And at the time, early days of the internet, I'm scouring Yahoo groups on
Yeah.
internet cafes to try and find anything in the UK, and I came to this crushing realization that I can't find it. I can't find them.
Mm.
I can't find any group specializing in our own martial arts and really practicing that. Yeah, and I think I was looking for a Tartan Yoda. I was kind of looking for this old boy who lived in a cave up in Schiehallion or something, that
Yeah.
had done this his life and knew it all. He just wasn't to be found.
Maybe
And
that's to be you in the future.
it was quite crushing, yeah. And it was also this heavy sense of responsibility came on us,
Yeah.
that I could do something to start that, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
a heavy sense, because I actually, at a time, I was fencing 5 days a week and 7 if there's a competition on at the weekend. I was fully on board.
Yeah.
Um, I stopped, and I stopped fencing because I realized this is more than a hobby to me now. You know, this is a path I'm on. Um,
Yeah.
but that path of starting from scratch to revive something historically, it seemed massive. It seemed a
Mm.
hell of an undertaking. It's like, is that really what I'm wanting to commit myself to? Because it's all or nothing here.
Yeah.
And I stopped fencing for 2 weeks just to take that in. And then there was a day where I made that commitment, the path of the sword, and that was it. Yeah.
So with that, I don't know how many of your secrets you want to give away, or if you're going to keep them till you live in a cave. But I mean, what is the process of recreating something like that? Do we have any records that you can base it on? I don't know. Where do you start?
So, in fact, in terms of written records, in Europe, we have manuscripts first, and then we have published treatises.
Right.
Um, and the earliest manuscript we have is from late 13th century, sword and buckler,
Mm.
German work. And then we go into the 14th century. We're still looking largely at manuscript works, out, outlining techniques and counter techniques that work. And these are written by fencing masters at the time. And going to the 15th century, it's still manuscripts largely. It's not really until the early 16th century, well, late 15th, early 16th century, we're actually starting to see published treatises on the art of
Right.
fencing by masters at the time. Um, and yeah, that's where you start to see systems in place. You know, you can see a progression of guards, a progression into attack, different ways of attack, different defenses, counter attacks, you know, and counter
Mm.
defenses. So it starts to build progressively then and be a little clearer as to what they did.
Yeah.
Um, but still, in any single treatise, you're not getting everything. You know, you're not getting a
Mm.
complete rounded method. It's always been easier to write technically. Say, you know, oh, if you're doing a feint, well, cut to the head and then cut to the leg, and you get that skeletal information. But that's not telling you how you're manipulating your blade between those two cuts, how you're
Sure.
stepping in relation to your opponent in terms of the measure and distance going on. None of that's explained. So the method
Mm.
behind the techniques is lacking in most treatises, you could say. So it gives you something, you know, a little idea, but kind of skeletal information. Um, you can only start to back engineer that, I think, if you've at least got a foundation in martial arts of some form, because martial arts of any form gives you a basis of grounding, you know, and footwork and measure and time, distance and time.
Yeah.
And that's method, yeah, behind any technique or system. So you can only start to make things really work if you kind of bring these two things together. But it's impossible to learn. And fencing masters through history have said this all the time. They say it's impossible to learn from fencing from a book. You need to learn
Yeah.
from a master. You need to learn, you know, your art there first. Then you can look at techniques and systems and start to have a better idea how they can work. So yeah, there are groups now that work from the treatises more exclusively, but you really have to bring that together with method to make it work. Um, and eventually, I created my own method and with the broadsword, as I saw the basket hilt broadsword, not uniquely Scottish, but very Scottish, but
Yeah.
very lacking also in the treatises. It just wasn't there much at all. And so I saw this as a bit of an important quest to undertake to bring this back into martial culture.
Mm. So yeah. I mean, how much does it change based on kind of what we do have? Are the techniques from modern fencing today extremely different to the historical fencing, or I don't know
Uh,
how?
yeah, I would say yes. And in fact, the major difference between sport fencing now and historical fencing is not it is the techniques, but more than the techniques, it's what's going on up here. It's the approach. Sports fencing is a sport, and it is
Yeah.
first and foremost a sport. And it's a very high speed game of tag. So, in terms of athleticism, it's great. In terms of reactions, it's great. And you know, you'll learn those, you know, in spades doing sport fencing. And what it doesn't give you, though, and what it doesn't promote, first and foremost, is a martial approach. Um, and the difference in that is kind of seen in the sense that in sport fencing, there's more focus on the other target to score the point because you land a hit on that, that gets your buzzer off, going, and that's your point, you know. So
Yeah.
there's more of a focus on the other target. In martial swordsmanship, historical fencing, your focus is on your target first, because it's about defending this and keeping this bag of bits in one piece,
Yeah.
you know, and without leaks at the end of it. Um,
Yeah.
it's about keeping yourself alive through defense, and through
Yeah.
effective defense. As a result of that, you put holes in the other man as a consequence of good defense.
Mm.
That's the difference. It's really almost opposite worlds in that sense.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah. Um, so yeah, I mean, is there any advice you'd give to anybody? Like if anyone's interested in getting into it themselves, like where would be the best place for them to start?
Find who's doing it locally, because now there's quite a number of historical fencing groups, you know, throughout the UK, throughout Europe, US, Canada, worldwide. It's really flourished since kind of mid 90s on. It's really grown arms and legs and kind of become its own thing. Um, it's largely under the sort of umbrella term of HEMA, Historical European Martial Arts.
Yeah.
So that would be the first place to look. Look for a HEMA group locally, and you can find them all they'll all be online. That would be the first place to look. Yeah.
Is so your particular group, is that just based around where you are, or have you spread out to a
No, I've always just been, yeah, one class, you know, which
yeah,
used to be in Edinburgh. And then when I moved, um, we moved home to the Borders in 2017, and then I moved the Armoury from Edinburgh here home. It's sitting right below me right now. Uh,
yeah.
that was the best thing ever. It's the most convenient thing in the world, you know, no travel
Nice.
cost or time. So yeah, I'm usually down there till like 2 in the morning, quite happily. You know, I'm not heavy grinding to annoy the neighbours, but light work we can do. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, so I decided to move the academy, to move the weekly classes from Edinburgh to here in the Borders. And there's a primary school that's like 3 minutes walk from the house that's got a great gym hall and facilities. So that's, you know, very, very handy.
So you like to keep your life all little compacted and into one little
It's
area,
yeah,
or?
I've managed to at least get it together that way, you know, and everything's yeah, and so it's super convenient now, which is great, and
Yeah.
it's a time saver if nothing else, you know. It means I can just get more
Yeah.
things done. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Saves you traveling back and forth.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I wondered, because that's quite a change of where you live as well. Nothing to do with your work, but do you miss being in Edinburgh?
Um,
City life, you know?
I miss having a handy good pub round the corner. I'll tell you that. The nearest pub
Fair.
here now is 3.5 miles that way, which is a committed stagger. You know,
Which
done
way
it
are you
before.
staggering?
Yeah, done it before, like, but only you know, only if it's a good session.
I was going to say the last question I had for you before I kind of go into the questions that I ask every guest was obviously after decades in the fields of both your martial arts and making swords themselves, what continues to excite and challenge you about your work? Which I kind of think you might have covered a bit already, really. But
Oh, yeah. Um, Making discoveries that have never been made before. You know, bringing something completely new to light is always exciting. You
mm,
know, proper Indiana Jones moments
yeah,
where you've discovered something, or you've joined dots in a way, or you've seen a connection that makes complete sense, you know, and you manage to verify that somewhere. That never fails, you know.
yeah,
To be excited, that is massively exciting whenever it happens. And just there's always when these things continue to happen, you get excited for the future as well, actually, because you
yeah,
know that there's going to be things down the line that you're going to come across, or you know, or that are going to happen that are just going to be incredible that way. So yeah, it gives me a great sense of kind of hope and faith and wonder, you know, not in a naive way, but just that, you know, there's things there to be discovered, you know, and that's exciting in
yeah.
itself. Um, yeah, that is. But also, you're making things, and what artist is ever satisfied with their work at any
Oh
time in
yeah.
their life? You know,
It
you
can always be
always,
better, right?
of course, yeah, you're the one
Yeah.
that sees all the flaws in your work at any time,
Yeah.
and you know you can always step up. So there's loads of techniques and there's loads of processes I'd still love to learn. I still love to do. You know,
Yeah.
I don't. I've only had a day and a half on the forge, for example. You know, I don't hand forge my blades. It's all stock removal. So yeah, I'd
Right.
love to get some more forge time. I'd love to learn, you know, better leather work and carving leather patterns would be awesome. Better carving skills in general for like antler and ivories and so on. Yeah, there's always another
Something
level to
else.
step up
Yeah.
to with processes. So that
Yeah.
still excites me, learning new things like that.
I think because you know Hamish, don't you? Pictavia.
Oh yeah, yeah. Hamish is a
Yeah,
legend.
yeah.
He's magic.
Yes. Yeah. I was gonna say you want to learn more leather work, that's your guy, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly. Yeah. He's
especially the
great.
historical stuff.
Yeah. And you know what? I've not got a tattoo on my body, but if I was going to get one, Hamish would be the man. There's something about the style of his Pictish tattoos, just magical. Yeah.
I got one a couple of weeks from him, just a couple of weeks back. Got one on my
Nice,
neck.
nice.
I don't know how well you can see that. Can you
Oh,
see that?
beautiful.
Yeah.
Nice.
Wee beastie.
Nice.
Yeah. What do you think the beast is out of interest?
Um, I do have an idea on actually.
Yeah.
Do you have an idea? Um, check out Scythian stags, right?
Scythian stag.
From
Let me make a
Scythian
note of that.
culture,
Yeah.
there was a repeated motif that they used, and it's a leaping stag. So
Yeah.
check out a Scythian leaping stag and see what you think about that.
Scythian. How do you spell Scythian? Sorry.
Scythian. So Scythian was the ancient culture that's effectively around where Ukraine is now. Um,
Yeah.
and it was very early, yeah, Celtic civilization. And there was
Interesting.
when they depicted stags, they often depicted them in a leaping, and it has the legs tucked under it, and it has the antlers flowing and sort of curling back from the head.
Is it not like the Siberian mummy tattoo?
Oh, similar, yes, similar,
Sounds similar. I've got one of those on my
similar,
leg.
yeah,
That's why
similar.
maybe I'm inadvertently getting the same thing
Yeah,
tattooed in.
no, you're right. Yeah,
Yeah.
similar lines and form.
Yeah.
The Scythian stag is leaping, so you get an
Mm.
elongated body with the snout and the curling antlers and the legs tucked under. It's very similar. It's almost like the Pictish beastie is like a stylized, sort of slightly abstract version of, almost
Yeah.
like a memory.
Mm.
and when
That's interesting because I've not heard that one before.
Yeah, and when we find actually quite ancient references to Scots originally coming from Scythia, that gets quite interesting, doesn't it?
So there's another path I've now got to investigate. That's like you've
Yeah,
opened
yeah,
another door
yeah, yeah,
there.
yeah.
Um, yes. I mean, you did even mention at the beginning that you tell stories as well, which we haven't even got into. Well, I
Yeah,
mean, just briefly, do you want to explain what kind of storytelling you do?
yeah. So my storytelling is definitely based in the martial culture, and
Yeah.
it's been a consequence, just a consequence, I think, of just the history you learn, you know, and the stories you learn along the way. Um, and yeah, and the way they all start to connect after a while, you know, across
Mm,
history becomes fascinating. So
yeah.
yeah, I found that I could tell stories when I'm retelling them to other people, and I would bring them into class as well, you know, because we're teaching arms, but also I like my students to understand the culture in as many ways as they can, and so just getting you know the best stories across as part of that.
Yeah.
Um, and I always found if I could see a story, you know, when you read it, I find if I could see it, that I could retell it no problem. you know. So it's not a matter of memory in that sense, you know.
Mm,
It's yeah, a very visual way to connect with the past, I think.
yeah.
And I enjoy that. You know, I really enjoy it. And I've found that just as a consequence, I think of learning stories and telling them, it was something that I could offer. And so sometimes that's something that I do, and I'll get called to have a stand of arms and tell stories at events or at museums and such. So yeah, it's part of the bardic tradition, you know, which I
Yeah,
think I've
absolutely.
always admired as part of our culture. But now being more involved in it and learning at the feet of the old Shaughneckis, the old tradition bearers, you know, in the
Mm,
Highlands as well. For me, that's the best time in the world, is learning these stories from the tradition bearers themselves, and being able to continue and pass that on as well.
yeah. It's quite interesting you say about kind of not having to remember if you can visualize. I mean,
Yep.
historically, that would have been storytelling. You'd know the stories because you were told them kind of fireside over and
Yeah.
over. And you're not deliberately memorizing them. They just happen to just sink in because you're seeing it, right?
Aye. Yeah, exactly. And then you know, I think in a way it's ideal, because then you will retell exactly that same story, but you'll word it your own way. You know, it's not going to
Yeah.
be word for word in that sense. So let's say it's not a memory test, you know. And I
Mm,
think that's the way stories also, I think, can subtly evolve over time, subtly
yeah.
change, but also if they're like real stories, you know, from real life, are visceral in the telling and in the imagery, I think,
Mm,
because they're real, you know. And you listen to it and go, really, that wasn't made up, you know, that wasn't a work of fiction. Wow, you know. Um, like the stories in Donald MacBain, a Scottish soldier, a Highland soldier who lived through the Marlborough campaigns and fought, a life of absolute legend. And you read his book, and it draws you in, because it's all true. He's lived through this. He's seen this. He's literally survived the night drinking the blood off dead men on a battlefield when he was stripped of his uniform and boots and
wow.
left to die. You know, things like this that are just wow. You know, um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think it's easy actually to retell stories that were real, because they're easier to see when they're told that way. Yeah.
Mm, yeah. So yeah, I have some questions, and I know you don't know what these are that I ask every
Yeah.
guest. So the first one is, do you think you could survive on a Viking Age diet?
Oh yeah, magic. Quite
Sign me
happily.
up.
Quite happily. When does it start? Yeah, because you
Yeah,
know, um, I do value health. Yeah, just generally being healthy.
yeah,
Um, and I was in the Army Reserves for 10 years, and a big part of that I loved was the health it gave you, the fitness it gave you. You're
yeah,
obliged to stay fit, you know, and
yeah,
part of that was diet, you know, was what you ate. You had to just
yeah,
watch a little more what you ate, which today I think's a little harder, you know.
yeah,
The amount of processed foods and so on, you know, high sugar foods, it's just
yeah.
everywhere, isn't it? So you've got to be
Probably easier where you live, where you don't have like a local takeaway or anything, right? I mean,
yeah, yeah, well, yeah, that's true. There's a farm shop, and it is mostly healthy stuff, I suppose.
there you
But
go.
you know, today, yeah, to eat healthily, you've got to be a bit more selective, really.
Yeah.
And generally that can cost a little more as well. So I think today it's a little harder
Mm.
to, yeah, eat fully well and naturally, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
historically, it's all you had, you
Yeah.
know. Even if you're eating rat for lunch, still natural, isn't
So is there any food you'd miss if you were living on a Viking Age diet?
it? Yeah, high sugar content. It's,
Just going
I've got
back
a
on that
sweet tooth.
last one completely.
Yeah, I've got a sweet tooth, so you know, it's my weakness food wise. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, but then you know, if I was brought up then, I wouldn't have it, so I wouldn't miss it.
That's the deeper question is whether like you're being taken back to that way of living, isn't it? Or whether this is your way of life.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
That kind of changes the question a little bit, but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It would have,
So no particular sweets, just anything sweet.
yeah. Yeah, ice cream, I suppose. Oh, I love good ice cream.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Ice cream and tablet, things like that, you know.
Especially, I don't know how hot it is up in Scotland at the minute, but it's absolutely roasting down here.
Yeah, I think it's the same everywhere. Yeah, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, ice cream sounds good right now.
It does, yeah. Full can of Iron Brew. Oh yeah.
Ah, it's another mention. Do you know, Iron Brew only recently got mentioned on the podcast for the first
Right.
time in the couple of years I've been doing it.
Okay.
I don't. Do you know you? I assume you know Rona as well, Hamish's other half. Do
Yeah, yeah,
you know
yeah,
Rona?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Wasted Remains. Yeah, she mentioned the Iron Brew as well.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
Getting a little trend going.
She's a great talent as well. Great skills,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. The reproductions of the ring, the Pictish ring. Oh, spot on.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely magic. Yeah.
So yeah, next question is it's the weirdest question. I can explain to you later if you want to know where it come from.
All
It's
right.
what's the weirdest thing in your kitchen?
This morning it was a cannonball, but I brought that back in here.
We've never had that answer before.
Yeah, I had a cannonball and a fragment of 13-inch mortar sitting on the table this morning. Um,
Wow.
yeah, at times
Wow.
there can be random weapons just sitting on the kitchen table, you know.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll have, you know, folk arrange to visit the armory and they'll come round and we'll tell a few stories and stuff. And often I'll just invite them up and we'll sit around the kitchen table and I'll just start getting the weapons on, you know. And, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's seen some shiny things in its time, all right. Um, but just now, what's the weirdest thing in the kitchen right now?
Mm,
Um, Actually, yeah, I have a weakness for craft beer. You know, I do something on my Armory's Facebook group most nights, which is tonight's tipple, and I try
yeah.
and keep it to Scottish beers, you know.
Yeah.
But I've got some interesting brews in that kitchen right now, and some interesting whiskies. And one of the most interesting would be a bottle of maple whiskey that some friends from Canada gave us. It's
That,
magic
that sounds really sickly, is it?
in a very good way,
Yeah.
like in the best way. Yeah, I love a good dram, you know, and I got into that because there was a fellow visited the armory one day. He wanted to do a wee photo shoot, you know, so sometimes get asked that. And he came
Mm.
around within a few minutes. We're talking about whiskey. So, oh, you like a good dram? Aye, oh, yeah. He says, well, I happen to be on the committee of the Police Scotland Whisky Tasting Society. Would you like to come along to our next tasting? Well, you didn't have to ask twice, you know. So, so I went along and he got us along to a few after that. And then he had us actually present for one of them. I said,
Yeah.
I said, I'm happy to do that. I said, well, here's a theme. We'll do 6 different stories from 6 different battlefields and legends.
Yeah.
And I'll bring along an appropriate weapon or relic for each of
Yeah.
those stories to accompany it. And you source the whiskey from the distillery closest to that battlefield or that conflict, you know. And it was a great way
Mm.
to bring all that together, bring the relics and the
Nice.
stories and a taste of the land all in a whiskey tasting set. So yeah, he had us do a couple of those,
That sounds
you know,
incredible.
over time, and it was great. So I learned a
Yeah.
lot about whiskey through those tastings as well, though, you know, because I'd
Yeah.
be trying a lot of whiskies I'd never usually either be able to afford or try.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, yeah, that got me a proper taste for malts. And I mean, there's as many, you know, different flavors and such a whiskey, you know, and
Yeah.
subtleties in it as you get, you know, wine tastings and all sorts. It's yeah, we're spoiled for choice up here.
Yeah. All right. So, where did we get to? We did the weirdest thing. Yeah. So, what's the worst food or drink you've ever eaten?
Oh, worst. Oh, that's a
Mm.
great question, actually. Um, there's not much I don't eat, you know. I've got a fairly broad range. I don't go for like really hot. curries. Up to medium's good for me, but
Yeah.
one of the worst flavors for me, wasabi. Can't stomach it. Just something about that flavor. It just sets my whole system off. Just like, oh, yeah, wasabi. I think that's one of the fiercest flavors for me.
Do you know what? I don't know whether I've ever had just wasabi on its own. Like I've
Yeah,
had wasabi flavor things, which is obviously a
yeah,
different thing.
yeah.
Like you used
Even
to be able to
wasabi
get like,
flavor things for me.
yeah.
Oh, just a taste that doesn't gel with my system.
I mean that's fair enough. That's a strong one.
Is that yeah? Because I get the impression wasabis are something you like or loathe.
Yeah.
Um, and I did something terrible once though. I don't regret it though, because I knew he could take it. It was a good friend, Bob, and we were in first time in New York, and we found this place selling sushi. I love sushi, so we got sushi for lunch, and we're
Yeah.
there with our wee trays, and Bob says, "Aye, what's this green stuff here?" And it was wasabi, and I said, "Oh, that's just it's just like a cream cheese, Bob." And
Oh,
he took a massive gulp of
no.
a piece of sushi, watch his face change colours as he's eating.
Wow.
A little cruel,
Oh,
but quite funny.
funny nonetheless, yeah. All right. So kind of almost a flip of that is what's the most memorable meal you've ever had?
Oh, oh, that's a good one. Most memorable meal. I would actually say it's any meal that I've had at the grain store in Edinburgh, which sadly no longer exists. And it only closed down. I think it was only about a year ago or a couple of years ago it closed down.
Yeah.
But any time I went there, it was all I think it was all Scottish ingredients, but top quality food.
Yeah.
Just yeah, yeah, proper master chef stuff. Um, and it was it just that there was nothing fake about the restaurant itself. It wasn't themed in any way. It was just either raw stone walls or white painted stone walls, which was the original building. And just very polite and good natured service. Everything
Yeah.
was almost perfect about this place. I loved it. It wasn't cheap, but you didn't mind actually paying for a really good meal from Grain Store. Yeah, venison cooked just like you've never had venison cooked before. Uh, yeah, they would have wild pheasant and various game and such. But oh my God, it was always just tasted like the best meal you've ever had. So I think any meal out of that restaurant for me was memorable. And yeah, and I was gutted to hear it closed.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. That is a real shame when something like that happens.
I can remember though most memorable breakfast ever though was with my mate Bob. We used to hang about quite a bit, and we're both up in the Highlands. And
Yeah.
I took him to see a local castle that was my clan's traditional castle, and it is pretty epic. So we went there, and just driving back a short distance from that, we had the longbows with us. We did a bit of longbow on the beach, and a short distance driving back, I say, Bob, stop the car, stop the car. What is it? He says. And I jump out and I'd seen a pheasant dart by the side of the road. So I grabbed the longbow and I go stalking after this pheasant. First arrow missed it. I chased up with the second one. Toof, got it.
Yeah.
Quick in the back of the car because technically we're poaching, yeah. So in the
Yeah.
back of the car it goes, and we drive on. And we were camping at a beach a wee bit down the coast from Glenouig. But of course, we hit Glenouig in first, and we got pretty merry to say the least. And we staggered all the way back to the tent, plucking the pheasant as we went, left a trail of feathers behind us, and we did some more longbow on the beach, and the sun was I think the sun was just coming up, by that time, because we didn't stop drinking. And we cooked that pheasant on the
Yeah.
beach. And it was pheasant. My father used to have a smokehouse, and he did lots of smoked trout and salmon and so on. But he did this amazing
Oh,
smoked cream cheese, which was rolled in
yeah.
oatmeal, and we had buns with that fresh cooked pheasant and smoked cream cheese on the beach as the sun's coming up. Magical, magical.
I'm almost there at that point. See, there's your storyteller coming
Yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah. Freshly poached pheasant.
Oh. I
That was a
tell you,
memory.
like, the stories you've got, it just sounds like you've lived like such a life. Do you know what I mean? Like you've had adventures.
Like every day is a wee adventure, So.
Yeah. All right, so the last one brings the tone down a little bit, I'll say.
uh,
But so the premise is it's when you die, your relatives and your friends are preparing your grave goods. So what food and drink do you get to take to the feast in Valhalla?
all right. What food and drink? Never thought about
Mm.
that before. Because I have thought which sword would go with us.
I mean, you can go sword if you like. Which sword?
No, no, it's a good question. What food and drink? Um, Aye, that is a good one. Uh, it doesn't have to be anything that's going to be preserved or such, because it's coming with us anyway. Yeah?
It's coming with you, yeah.
Um, the food one, because ice cream's not going to last.
You can take ice cream if you like.
Ice cream's just not going to last. What food? Um, Haggis, perhaps. I do really love haggis. Got to say, you know,
Yeah,
I'm
I
not,
like haggis.
I'm not want to sound uber Scottish about it or anything, but I do love it.
Yeah,
That and a bottle of Dalmore, I think, is a
yeah,
favourite whiskey. Yeah, yeah, that would do us.
yeah.
Yeah,
That sounds all right.
yeah, that would do us.
Any tatties with that? I mean-
Yeah, throw in some tatties and neeps as well. I love it is it around every Burns night and
Yeah,
St Andrew's Day. Greg's in Edinburgh, at least. I don't know if
yeah.
they do it anywhere else in Scotland, but in Edinburgh they used to do a wee haggis, neeps, and tatties pie.
No,
So like their
really?
macaroni pie,
Yeah.
but haggis, neeps, and tatties in layers. Oh, magic,
Oh,
magic.
I need
You
to
know,
try that.
yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good thing. That and a lasagna pie. There's a bakery in Peebles that does a lasagna pie, just the wee things. Oh yeah.
Mm.
Whoever came up with that concept, yeah, magic.
I mean, you're gonna have to tell us now. Which sword are you taking?
Um, I suppose it would have to be a basket hilt sword. You know,
Yeah,
that's I suppose become a theme of my fencing, my martial path. And
yeah,
it's uniquely well. There were various types of basket hilts throughout Europe, but obviously the Scottish style is uniquely, as part of our culture. So yeah,
yeah.
that would do. That would do.
Awesome. So, I mean, just to kind of wrap up the episode then. So, what's next for you, the academy, the armories? Have you got any particular kind of projects or research that you're looking into at the minute? I think last time when you were on Weird Wessex, you kind of hinted you might be recreating the Highlander sword. Am I remembering that right?
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
Did
That
you
one's
get to
still
that?
to happen. I'm still waiting on
Oh,
this boy getting me the casting over, to do the guard right.
yeah,
But I can't wait to make that sword, especially
yeah,
the new Highlanders coming out soon, and
yeah.
I might even possibly be involved in that movie somewhere. We'll see.
Oh, are
um,
you going to be the Highlander? Is this you now? Are you?
no, no. No, it wouldn't be a speaking role. I'll tell you that. um, Aye, the Highlander sword's still to be made. Um, I've remade one of the Stirling Bridge swords, but I've still got a second Stirling Bridge sword to remake. That's definitely, an imminent one to be designing up. And the Pictish Shields project, there's still several different Pictish shields I've got to remake, and a couple of them are going to be quite involved, I think, quite technically involved. And one of them I think is going to be, yeah, quite decorated in terms of the leatherwork and such as well, and the
Yeah.
metalwork. So looking forward to that. I love doing high detail work when I get the
Yeah.
chance. And you either get a customer that comes along where they say, yeah, money's no question, go for it. And you're like, yes, now I get to play. And, you can pull out, everything creatively. So, yeah, I'm hoping the next couple of days, there's a very simple, small buckler that I've got to remake off one of the carvings. And because I'm attending the Crannog Centre for their Celts Are Coming event on the
Yeah, I know the place.
calendar 26th, 27th this month. We'll be
Yeah.
up there. So I'd like to have another wee buckler to
Yeah.
have on the stand of arms up there for that. So we'll be pulling one of those out soon.
We took a visit last year, and unfortunately, because we know Claire Mullen,
Yeah, yeah,
and Claire wasn't very well. On the one occasion we come up to Scotland, she
right,
was off
right.
work and she was sick. So
Oh, no, no. They're a
yeah,
great crew up there, and it's such a magic wee place. And I believe they're in process of rebuilding the first Crannog at the moment.
yes, they
Um,
should be.
and they've got plans for two and possibly three Crannogs, actually. Great.
Yeah, yeah. I think when we went up in the summer, they had it all kind of planned out for that winter when they were closed. I think they were going to start kind of putting in the footings and things.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but I'm not sure where they're at now with that.
Yeah, yeah. And, I would so love to see more of that, that type of place in Scotland. There's just
Mm,
not enough proper living history experiences, of sites where you can
yeah.
step into the Iron Age, step into the early medieval period. So, oh, yeah, I mean, Scotland's screaming out for that. I'm aware
Where?
there's a Caithness broth project where they're planning to build a broth from scratch,
Yeah.
which would just be immense, just be
Mm.
incredible. So yeah, we need more of these kind of places.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, as I say, well, I've come up twice. I come up once and we went to Dumfries and Galloway. You might say that's not really Scotland. I'm not going to get
Yeah.
into
Oh no, it counts.
that. And then, yeah, we come up last year and we did like the full tour and went all the way up to, well, the furthest north we went was Loch Ness. And then we
Yeah,
went
yeah.
across to Skye and the tent fell down in the wind and yeah, all the proper
Yeah, yeah.
Scottish stuff.
In the
Yeah, but on that trip we spent a couple of days. Mike let us camp kind of on the side of the loch at the Crannog
Mm,
Centre. So yeah, we spent a few days there. It's very nice. Yeah.
magic,
Hopefully get
magic.
back up at some point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let me know if you do.
Yeah, will do. So yeah, I mean, for anyone that's interested in kind of following what you do, have you got a social media account or anything like that where people can?
Yeah, so I've only got the website and the Facebook group. So the Facebook group, I always intended that to be like a wee window into armory production and ongoing
Yeah,
projects. And so, yeah, it's pretty much anything I'm doing daily, whether that's working in the armory, if I'm doing a research project or, going to a museum or such, then yeah, I put all my wee adventures on there.
so what's the group called? Sorry, just for anyone.
It's Macdonald Armories, just
There you
Macdonald
go.
Armories on Facebook.
Easy to
You
find.
should be able to find us there.
I'll put some links under the video and the in the
Magic.
podcast description as well. Yeah.
Spot on.
Is that somewhere where people can contact you if they've got something they want you to make or anything like that as well?
So had to stop taking orders about 5 or 6 years ago now. I had to just
Wow.
cap all orders.
Yeah.
I was quoting folk, I think at the time, 5 to 6 years for the
Wow.
FS knives and 10 years plus for custom work. And folk were still saying, that's okay, I don't mind waiting. And then you start thinking, when does that end? When does it end? And it
Yeah.
wasn't giving me time to get special projects in, which
Yeah.
always come along, new discoveries and things that you're just like, God, got to do something about this now. yeah, it's a very distracting business, So you've got to factor in time to make these things. So I
Yeah,
had to take the decision just to stop taking orders entirely. So yeah, I can't make anything, somebody's desperately wanting at the
yeah,
moment. I may start taking orders again down the line. We'll see how that goes. But every now and again, I do make things available through the Armory's Facebook group. I'll do a small batch of ski and do's or something, and yeah, yeah. So keep an eye on the group. That's the only way. I think the only way you get a chance of getting something of it,
oh,
unless
lovely.
you're already on the board.
I mean, one very last question actually would be then, so have you ever got any plans to take on like an apprentice or something to make sure that knowledge gets passed on again?
So I've done that a number of times. I've had several apprentices and a couple of
Yeah,
employees along the way. Um, the difficulty I found in that was not finding someone who was willing to invest years of their life in
yeah,
your business. You know,
yeah.
um, apprentices, employees that I've had were along for generally about 6 months or so, 6 months to a year for their own development, and then they'd move on.
Mm,
So yeah, kind of getting the right type of person on board that you want to train up over years. You want them to invest themselves in your business.
yeah,
That I've always found really difficult. The last
yeah.
apprentice I did have was a great Canadian lad who was with me for 2 years. Um, but then he didn't get himself up to speed and quality that I was looking for in time for me to offer him a paid position.
Yeah.
And there wasn't another visa you come back on. Um, I then realized how much more work I could get done in a day when I didn't have an apprentice.
Been there, done
And
that.
actually
Yep.
realized I think I'm okay,
Yeah.
just cracking on by myself. So yeah, so
Yeah.
I've decided just to do that
Yeah.
for the time being anyway. Unless somebody turns up Fight Club style and just camps out in the garden for 4 or 5 weeks at a time, I'll throw them scraps now and again or a packet of crisps and they'll be okay with that.
You
Okay with
heard
your
him,
past,
folks.
you know, you're in.
No.
Unless somebody, does something mad like that, then yeah, I'm not looking. I'm not looking at the moment.
Yeah. No, I've been there myself with my business and had multiple apprentices. And like you say, to get them to actually dedicate to not just want to learn what you know and then
Yeah.
move on, it's really difficult.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to be the last sword maker or knife maker in Scotland, but by a long way. There's not many doing swords, but there's now quite a few
Yeah.
more doing knives.
I feel like there needs to be a film or a documentary though, the last sword maker of Scotland. Like
Yeah.
there can be only one.
Really? We can have it out with each other on the top of hills.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Paul. It's been a lot of fun chatting to you this evening.
That's been magic. Enjoyed it, mate.
Yeah. And yeah, thank you everyone for watching or listening, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.